Well, it's Saturday and it's martini time. I just got I'll try not to strangle this time. There's nothing worse than strangling on a martini. Just to let you know. Don't breathe a martini into your lungs. So, I just got a email from the Yogaville. I get emails from them, and Yogaville is a spiritual center in Virginia, in between Farmville and Charlottesville, that was founded by Swami Satchidananda, who probably is the Indian master who lasted the longest and has left the most lasting legacy than any of the other gurus or masters that came here in the 60s. Even Swami Muktananda, who had hotel-sized ashrams, has kind of faded from the physical scene. But Yogaville is still active, powerful, vibrant, and a great teaching center for all of the spiritual teachings that at workshops and seminars that come there for retreats and seminars. So go to Yogaville on the internet. And Swami Satchidananda first became, in the public scene, he taught up in New York City, had started Integral Yoga, and he was the guru who opened up Woodstock in 1969. I started my yoga practice in 1970. But I got this email today, which was celebrating the birthday of Swami Sivananda, who was the renowned master of of Kashmir in Rishikesh. Started the Divine Light Society, I think that's the name of it. And his disciple was Swami Satchidananda. And so it was his master who told him, "You're ready to go teach," which brought Satchidananda to America. But let me tell you the rest of the story. Here's here's a little picture of Swami Satchidananda, Swami Sivananda, his master, who died in the 50s. Swami Satchidananda died in the 90s. No, 2000, early 2000. I'm not sure, 2002, somewhere in there. But the rest of the story, and this is where it really gets weird. So this lady here is Alice Christensen. And she was a housewife. She was a housewife in Ohio back in the 50s, early 50s, I guess, 50s. And she started getting dreams from this Indian yogi who visited her in the night and taught her. And then he began to appear in her bedroom. And then she found out it was this guy, Swami Sivananda. So she went to the library, started reading up on yoga. She didn't know anything about yoga. And so she began to correspond. Found out he was alive and he lived in Kashmir, in Rishikesh. And so he said, and then she found out she was going to go visit him, and then found out he died. But he sent her a letter and said, "Your teacher will come." And so Alice got involved in yoga and Philosophical Society and was getting involved in the spiritual path. And then she was sent to the airport to pick up a yoga master who was coming to teach. And she went to pick him up. And it was Swami Rama from Hardwar, from that area, Kashmir Shamir. And here's Swami Rama. And when he met her, he said, "I've come for you, Alice. I'm your teacher. I've come for you." So this was the teacher that Sivananda sent her. And so when I got after I had this powerful shift in consciousness in 1968, I knew I had to find a master who could guide me. And so when a friend of mine told me about Alice and Light of Yoga Society that she was creating in Cleveland, I knew that's where I go. You know, when an idea takes, I mean, you just know you have to do. It's like a love affair. You just know you have to be with that person. You just know that this is the one. I just knew this was the one. There wasn't any, oh, let me look up on the encyclopedia, let me look up in the books and see if this is the one. Oh, well, it's got that, and these people say it's okay, and that. No, no, no. The heart knows this is the one. So I went up to Pennsylvania, where she was staying for a weekend, and I just walked up to her and says, I want to be your student. And so she had been to India and studied under Swami Rama, this master who had come. She'd been to India, and when she became ready to be a spiritual teacher, she just started the Light of Yoga Society. So Rama would come and talk and visit to the Light of Yoga Society and visit other people. And so I started my yoga path. And when I met Rama, I went up to see, I was living in Norfolk. My wife and I were running a home for retarded called Hope House. And so I would go up, and then I heard that Rama was going to be I was invited to visit him. So I went up to see him. And as soon as I walked in, he was the one. I just bowed. I just gave it up. And walking down, and I've talked about this before, I'll put it together because I don't know who's dropped in here to listen. So going down to tea on the lawn, you get hooked up with Indian masters. British tea is the thing, tea with milk in it. And so when I was walking down there, a hologram of my father rose right out of him and hovered right there between us, and then went back into him. A real hologram, just like you would see in Star Wars, you know. And some shift was happening in my path, in my life. So anyway, to make a long story shorter, when I left the Light of Yoga Society, it's kind of like it just ended. It wasn't, Rama died, and that was my real connection. So when he died in 72, which was a year after I met him, the personal connection left. And so I ended up going through a lot of psychic dramas. And then I heard chanting by Swami Muktananda's ashram, and again I knew that was the one. So I went to Swami Muktananda's ashrams in Fallsburg, New York, in the mountains. Big hotels, big old Catskill hotels he took over. Made it into an Indian ashram with Hindu gods and all the works, just like a spiritual Disneyland. But anyway, I felt the energy and the power, and so I stayed and followed him, made him my guru, my master. This is a devotional relationship, and you can't really explain it until he died in 1982. And so then I went through some more psychic dramas, and I met a friend of ours who was a devotee of Swami Satchidananda at Yogaville. Yogaville was built in about 1985. Yogaville is a township of about 500 acres, and in that Yogaville, it's on the map, Yogaville, there is the Swami Satchidananda ashram, where you have the monks who are teachers, and there is a lotus down by the river on the James River. You have to go to the internet to see it, Yogaville. And this is a temple from India that's been levitated right down on the James River. It's the most amazing place and the most powerful center. And it's not like Disneyland. You don't have to stand in line. You don't have to buy tickets. It's a meditative center. So I really hesitated to mention it because it's kind of like an undiscovered place. When people discover something, it's ruined. So anyway, Yogaville is not ruined. And so why I'm sharing this is because I'm just suddenly aware of the underlying network of connections that we often discover in our life. So here's Swami Sivananda, the great sage of Kashmir, really very famous. And he was connected with Swami Satchidananda. Oh, well, let me finish the Satchidananda story. So I met him, a friend of ours, who was a devotee of his. It was his birthday, I think it was 1986. And we had a stained glass studio, a little private thing, so we made stained glass. So we made her a big Om Namah Shivaya for her to give to Swami Satchidananda. So we went up there to meet him when she gave it to him. So we met him. But I was, at that time, I was done with gurus. And I was not ready to hook up again. I'd done that. So I didn't go back up there and he died. I didn't go back up there until 2005. So that's 1986, 2005. And I think he died in 2002, maybe, I'm not sure. So I go back up there because my daughter was in a transitional space, and I thought maybe she could get some an adjustment or recentering there. And I remember being there, and suddenly I was the one that got adjusted. Like a spiritual chiropractic adjustment. And suddenly my my spiritual path came back. Wasn't seeking any gurus, but my alignment with my Dharma, the alignment with my heart, the alignment with my path, the alignment with my purpose, with my evolution. You know what I mean. The only equivalent to that is, in our culture, is when you fall in love and you feel like you have an alignment. Suddenly everything is in alignment with the whole cosmos. So that's what the spiritual path feels like. It feels like you're in the right direction. You're going in the right direction. And that creates energy to move in the right direction. The energy comes from, when you get in the right direction, the energy is there to move you in the right direction. This is the real miracle of life. When you're in alignment, when you're going in the right direction, nobody has to tell you, you know it, and the energy is there. So you don't have to, oh God, I got to, the energy is there. So anyway, I got this realignment in 2005, which really meant I'd given up writing. I started writing again, had a blog then, and I started meditating. And I started getting back in my spiritual readings, And I began to evolve. I began to move again. And that's been going on ever since. But I guess the point is, if there is a point, was that I'm suddenly today with this little email with a video of Swami Sivananda back in India, these little black and white silent films, 16 millimeter films of this great sage going through crowds of people and holding darshan and worship services and whatnot, you see. And then watching another video clip of Swami Satchidananda remembering his guru when he first met him. And when you're on the spiritual path, there is no experience like meeting your teacher. There is no equivalent to meeting your teacher. Now, this meeting your teacher can be, doesn't have to be a spiritual, not a guru or something. It could be somebody who awakens your spiritual path. And it can be in a book. It can be a teachers write. It can be through their writing. It can come from anywhere. This contact or this touch with your teacher. The greatest picture of making contact with your teacher is on the Sistine Chapel that Michelangelo did, of God touching the finger of man. So not that your teacher is God, but the transmission that you get from your teacher, you see, is transpersonal. It's trans-ego. It's trans anything you know. And the only equivalent that I can share with you is that of falling in love, is a transmission. You know it's bigger than you have ever been. And it's a gift. It comes from without. You can't make it happen. So you can't make contacting a teacher through a book or a person, or even a friend. Doesn't make that. The form doesn't matter. It's the teaching that makes the contact when your heart is asking for it. When you're asking for it, the teacher will come in whatever form is available. And that's always going to be creative. It's not going to be so. If you are a Christian and you ask for the transmission, what will come to you will be in some kind of form of Christianity. You won't be getting visions of Krishna, you see. So whatever form your tradition is, Christianity, Buddhism, yoga, Zen, Hinduism, Muslim, whatever the tradition, if you ask for the transmission, if you ask for the touch, it'll come through that tradition. The form doesn't make any difference, you see. It's like cups. If you want a cup of tea, it doesn't matter what the cup looks like. You're going to get some tea. So I'm sharing this moment, you know, because I got this email in the celebration of the Swami Satchidananda's teacher, Swami Sivananda. And in this tradition, the birthdays of your teacher are as important as the birthday of Jesus. So Jesus, in this, the way I'm talking about here, was a spiritual master. The difference between spiritual masters and other traditions is that they'd never say that their spiritual master is the one and only in the cosmos. In the history of the cosmos, only this one teacher is the one teacher. And I think that's where the fallacy of Christianity, the fault, if there is such a thing as a fault, or the missing the mark happened with Christianity when it says, and it all doesn't say this, but when some say Jesus was the only spiritual master and everyone else is false. So that right away limits your potential for having a touch, for having a transmission. Well, it can only come through Jesus, you know. It can't come through another teaching. It can't come through my neighbor. It can't, you know what I mean? So there's kind of a limitation of possibility when you say that's the only one, and all I got to do is believe it was the only one, and then I'm okay. But if you don't feel the energy of the alignment, well, then you're missing something. If you don't feel the creativity and the joy of the alignment, if you don't feel it, and you just think, well, it's going to come, you're missing something. So this whole idea is that when you know what the alignment, the feeling, you know something when you feel it. You feel it. It's not like a thought. It's not a belief. It's not an opinion. It's not what you've intellectually decided upon. The path, the spiritual path, the alignment with life, which is what we're talking about here, alignment with your life and the life of the world, is a heartfelt alignment. And we always know that when it happens. We always know that when it happens, even though we have never experienced it before. We recognize it when it happens because we have to already know it. You can't know anything unless you already know it. So we already know God. We already know our spiritual master. But we won't know it until we feel it. So that's what I hope to share here. That, just my own experience, as messed up as it is, as messed up as it is, I know. So I speak from my knowing. That's where this comes from, my knowing. Okay, so thanks for dropping in. Notice I've kept my timer going here, the little bell, so 20 minutes. I'm trying to keep a little discipline here. Thanks for dropping in.